The fluorescent lights of the grocery store hummed overhead like a swarm of tired bees, casting harsh shadows across Marcus Thompson's weathered face. His calloused fingers trembled as he counted the coins one more time, spreading them across his palm like a prayer he already knew wouldn't be answered. $3.17. That was all that remained between him and complete emptiness. Behind him, his daughter Lily made soft whimpering sounds from her stroller. The kind that meant she needed changing again. The kind that tore at his heart, because he knew the last diaper at home was already soiled and waiting in the trash. The cashier, a young woman with kind eyes but an impatient tap to her fingers, watched him count. The line behind him grew longer, filled with people whose biggest worry was whether to get organic or regular milk. While Marcus stood there with a single pack of the cheapest diapers the store carried, knowing even these were beyond his reach, the store seemed to grow quieter around him, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen when a father's love met the cruel mathematics of poverty. Marcus had walked for miles to get here because his car had been repossessed last week, pushing Lily in a stroller with one broken wheel that made it pull constantly to the left. His arms ached from the effort, but not as much as his pride ached from what he was about to do. He cleared his throat, the words catching like broken glass. Could you take off half the pack? Maybe just give me 10 diapers instead of 20. The cashier's face softened with pity, the look Marcus had grown to hate more than hunger itself. I'm sorry, sir, but I can't open the package. It's against store policy. Behind him, someone muttered something about people having kids they couldn't afford, the words hitting him like physical blows. Marcus wanted to turn around, wanted to explain that just 6 months ago, he had been a construction foreman with steady work, that Lily's mother had died in childbirth, that the medical bills had taken everything, that the company had gone under, that he had tried. God knows he had tried, but explanations were luxuries he couldn't afford either. Just as Marcus was about to pick up Lily and walk out empty-handed, wondering how he would make it through the night with no diapers, a voice spoke from behind him. I'll take them all. The voice was deep, but gentle, carrying an authority that made everyone in line turn to look. Marcus turned to see a man in an expensive suit, maybe 40 years old, with silver threading through his dark hair and eyes that held a sadness that seemed to mirror Marcus's own. The man stepped forward, placing a black credit card on the counter. Whatever he's buying, put it on my card, and add 2 more packs of diapers, some wipes, and he glanced at Lily, who was staring at him with wide brown eyes, and some of that baby food on aisle 3, the good kind. Marcus felt his throat close up, pride and gratitude warring in his chest. I don't take charity. The man looked at him directly, and Marcus saw something flicker in those sad eyes. It's not charity. My daughter would have been about her age. The past tense hung in the air between them like a bridge built from shared pain. The man's name was Christopher Chen, though Marcus wouldn't learn that until later. In that moment, he was just a stranger whose grief had taught him to recognize suffering in others. Christopher had built a technology empire from nothing, had everything money could buy, except the one thing he wanted most. His daughter, Sophie, had lived for only 3 months before a rare genetic condition took her away, and his marriage had crumbled under the weight of that loss. He had been coming to this grocery store every Tuesday for 2 years, buying baby supplies that he donated. 2 shelters, a ritual that somehow made him feel connected to the daughter he had lost. But today was different. Today he saw Marcus counting those coins, saw the desperation barely held in check, saw Lily's innocent face, and something inside him shifted. As the cashier rang up the items, Christopher noticed how Marcus stood straighter, trying to maintain dignity even in this moment of need. He recognized that posture. It was the same way he had stood in the hospital when the doctors told him there was nothing more they could do for Sophie. Marcus pushed the stroller out to the parking lot, Christopher walking beside him in silence. The evening air was cool. carrying the smell of coming rain. Lily had fallen asleep, her tiny hand clutching a thread that had come loose from her second-hand blanket. "Thank you," Marcus said finally, the words inadequate, but necessary. Christopher nodded, then surprised them both by asking, "When did you eat last?" Marcus's silence was answer enough. "There's a diner 2 blocks down. Let me buy you dinner, please. I could use the company." And that was how it started, not with grand gestures or life-changing moments, but with 2 broken men sitting in a vinyl booth while a baby slept between them, finding solace in shared silence and understanding that sometimes the universe puts people in each other's paths, not to save them, but to remind them they're not alone in their struggles. Over coffee that had gone cold and pie that neither man really tasted, their stories spilled out in fragments. Marcus talked about Sarah, how she had been so excited about becoming a mother, how the pregnancy had been perfect until the very end, how he had held Lily for the first time while saying goodbye to his wife for the last time. His voice broke when he described selling everything they had owned together, piece by piece, watching their dreams disappear into pawnshop windows and online classified ads. Christopher listened without judgment, occasionally nodding, understanding the weight of every word. Then Christopher shared his own story about Sophie's diagnosis at 2 weeks old, about the specialists and treatments and false hopes, about holding her tiny body as she took her last breath, about his wife Amanda leaving because being together was a constant reminder of what they had lost. He talked about building his company, Chen Technologies, throwing himself into work because being busy meant less time to think, less time to feel. But success felt hollow when there was no one to share it with, no tiny voice to call him daddy, no reason to come home at night beyond the emptiness waiting there. As they talked, Lily woke and began to fuss. Marcus quickly prepared a bottle with the formula Christopher had bought, his movements practiced despite his exhaustion. Christopher watched, mesmerized by the simple intimacy of the moment, the way Marcus knew exactly how Lily liked to be held, the way he hummed softly to calm her. "You're a good father," Christopher said quietly. Marcus laughed bitterly. "A good father would provide better than this. A good father wouldn't be counting pennies for diapers." Christopher shook his head. "A good father shows up. A good father loves. The rest is just circumstances." He pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table. "I need a facilities manager at my company. Someone who knows construction, who can oversee our building maintenance and expansion projects. The job comes with health insurance, stable salary, and on-site daycare." Marcus stared at the card like it might disappear if he blinked. "Why would you do this? You don't even know me." Christopher looked at Lily, who was now contentedly drinking her bottle, her eyes heavy with approaching sleep. "Because somewhere, out there, I want to believe that if my Sophie had lived, if I had fallen on hard times, someone would have helped us too. Because kindness shouldn't be rare. Because you remind me that being a father is about more than providing money. It's about providing love, and you're rich in that, even when you're poor in everything else." The job interview was a formality. Marcus showed up the next Monday in his only suit, the one he had worn to Sarah's funeral, now loose on his frame from months of eating only when Lily was fed first. Christopher's assistant, an older woman named Grace, who had grandchildren of her own, took one look at Lily and immediately offered to watch her during the interview. The office was modern and bright, so different from the construction sites Marcus was used to. But when he started talking about his experience, about managing crews and projects, about problem solving and logistics, Christopher saw the competence that desperation had temporarily obscured. Marcus started work the following week. The salary wasn't enormous, but it was steady, reliable, enough to move out of the motel room they had been living in, and into a small apartment with actual hot water and windows that closed properly. The company daycare was a revelation, staffed by trained professionals who treated Lily like she was precious, which of course she was. Marcus threw himself into the work with the dedication of a man who had been given a second chance and was determined not to waste it. But the real change happened slowly, in small moments that added up to something larger. Christopher began stopping by Marcus's office, initially with work questions, then gradually just to talk. He would bring coffee, and they would discuss everything and nothing, finding in each other the kind of friendship that only comes from shared loss and mutual respect. Christopher taught Marcus about business beyond construction, about planning and strategy and thinking long-term. Marcus taught Christopher about resilience, about finding joy in small moments, about how Lily's laugh could make even the worst day bearable. On weekends, they began meeting at the park, Christopher pushing Lily on the swings, while Marcus told him stories about Sarah, keeping her memory alive through words. Christopher shared photos of Sophie, spoke her name aloud for the first time in months, without crying, though the tears were always close. They were an unlikely pair, the broke single father and the lonely CEO, but grief and hope had woven them together into something that resembled family. 6 months passed, and the changes were remarkable. Marcus had been promoted to head of facilities, his natural leadership and work ethic shining through. He had saved enough to buy a reliable used car, nothing fancy, but dependable. Lily was thriving in daycare, babbling constantly, and taking her first wobbling steps. But the biggest change was in the two men themselves. Marcus smiled more, the weight of constant worry lifting from his shoulders. Christopher had started therapy, finally dealing with his grief, instead of burying it in work. He had even begun dating again, tentatively, a teacher named Patricia, who understood loss and didn't try to fix him. The three of them, sometimes four when Patricia joined, became a regular sight at the diner where they had first really talked. The waitresses knew their orders by heart and always had crayons ready for Lily, who was beginning to scribble enthusiastically on any paper within reach. One evening, as autumn painted the leaves in shades of gold and red, Christopher asked Marcus to stay after work. In his office, he pulled out a folder of legal documents. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice careful and measured, "about Sophie, about Lily, about family." He opened the folder to reveal papers for a college fund he had set up in Lily's name. "I know you're proud, Marcus. I know you want to provide everything yourself. But please, let me do this. Not as charity, but as an uncle would, as family." Marcus felt tears burning his eyes. "Chris, I can't." But Christopher held up his hand. "You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. Purpose, connection, a reason to remember that love doesn't end with loss. It just changes form. Lily isn't Sophie, and I'm not trying to replace her. But loving Lily, being part of her life, it's helped me heal in ways I didn't think were possible. This isn't about money. It's about ensuring she has every opportunity to become whoever she's meant to be." Marcus stood and hugged Christopher, both men crying now, not caring about masculine pride or professional boundaries. They had saved each other. These two men brought together by a moment in a grocery store, by diapers and desperation, and the decision to see suffering and respond with kindness. Years passed, flowing like water, finding its way around stones. Lily grew into a bright, confident child who called Christopher Uncle Chris and couldn't remember a time when he wasn't part of their lives. She had Marcus's determination and Sarah's smile. Captured in the photos, Marcus had finally been able to frame and display. Christopher walked her to her first day of kindergarten alongside Marcus, both men pretending they weren't crying behind their sunglasses. He was there for every school play, every scraped knee, every birthday party. Patricia became Aunt Pat, and when she and Christopher married in a small ceremony with Lily as the flower girl, it felt like pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. Marcus was Christopher's best man, and in his speech, he talked about how family isn't always about blood, but about choosing to show up for each other, again and again, especially when life seems impossible. The company grew, and Marcus grew, with it eventually becoming Chief Operations Officer, a title that would have seemed like fantasy that night in the grocery store. He hired other single parents, people who reminded him of himself in those desperate days, giving them the same chance Christopher had given him. The company became known for its family-friendly policies, its understanding that employees were whole people with lives and struggles beyond the office walls. Christopher and Marcus started a foundation together, named after Sophie and Sarah, providing emergency assistance to single parents in crisis. Every Tuesday, they visited grocery stores, looking for parents counting coins, offering help without judgment, remembering their own moment of connection born from pain and kindness. On Lily's 10th birthday, as she blew out candles on a cake Patricia had baked and Christopher had decorated badly but with love, Marcus thought about that night in the grocery store, how close he had come to giving up, how a stranger's kindness had changed everything. He looked at Christopher, who was helping Lily open presents, his face bright with the joy of chosen family. The title of their story, Broke Single Dad Buys Diapers, with Last Dollar the lonely CEO behind him says, "I'll take them all," had become legend in their circle, told and retold at family dinners and company events. But it was more than just a story about financial rescue. It was about two men who had lost everything finding that together they could build something new. It was about grief becoming grace, about strangers becoming family, about the power of one moment of compassion to change multiple lives forever. Marcus sometimes wondered what would have happened if Christopher hadn't been in that line, if he had gone to a different store, if any small thing had been different. But then Lily would laugh, or Christopher would call with some ridiculous joke, or Patricia would invite them for Sunday dinner, and Marcus would realize that perhaps some meetings are meant to be, that perhaps the universe, in its mysterious way, puts broken people together not to fix each other, but to show each other that broken doesn't mean worthless, that you can build something beautiful from pieces, that family is defined not by perfection, but by presence. As he tucked Lily into bed that night, she sleepy and happy from her party, she asked him to tell her again about the night Uncle Chris became family. Marcus smiled, sitting on the edge of her bed, and began, "Well, sweet girl, it started when Daddy only had his last dollar, and he was trying to buy diapers for you." And Lily, who knew the story by heart, but never tired of hearing it, snuggled deeper into her blankets, safe and loved, proof that sometimes the best families are the ones you choose. The ones that choose you back, the ones that begin in the most unexpected moments and grow into something stronger than biology, stronger than circumstance, stronger than loss itself. The story of the broke single dad and the lonely CEO became more than just their story. It became a reminder that kindness is not weakness, that asking for help is not failure, that sometimes the person behind you in line might be exactly who you need to meet. Christopher kept that receipt from the grocery store framed in his office, next to pictures of Sophie and Lily, a reminder of the night two broken hearts began to heal. Marcus kept the business card Christopher had given him at the diner, worn soft from years of carrying it in his wallet, a talisman of second chances. They had both learned that wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in connections, that success meant nothing without someone to share it with, that the title Broke Single Dad Buys Diapers with Last Dollar, the lonely CEO behind him says, "I'll take them all" was really about taking all of someone's pain and choosing to help carry it, about seeing a stranger's struggle and deciding to make it your own, about the beautiful, messy, complicated miracle of humans taking care of each other when the world seems determined to tear them apart. And in the end, that's all any of us can do, show up for each other, one diaper, one kindness, one chosen family at a time.